How to assign memory resources to Kubernetes or OpenShift container and pod with Ansible. I'm going to show you a live demo and some simple Ansible code. I'm Luca Burton and welcome in today's episode of Ansible Pilot. Let's talk about the Ansible module K8s. The full name is Kubernetes.core.K8s, which means that it's part of a collection of modules of Ansible to interact with Kubernetes and Red Hat OpenShift cluster. It manages Kubernetes object K8s. Parameters. There is a long list of parameters of a K8s module. Let me summarize the most used. Most of the parameters are very generic and allow you to combine for many use cases. The name and namespace specify object name and object namespace or project. They are useful to create, delete or discover an object without providing the full resource definition. The API _ version parameter specify the Kubernetes API version default v1. The state, like for other Ansible module, determine if an object should be created, present, updated, patched, or deleted, absent option. The definition parameter allow you to provide a valid YAML definition directly in the Ansible Playbook code. Alternative, use the src parameter to link a YAML file. Demo time. How to assign memory resources to Kubernetes or OpenShift container and pod with Ansible Playbook. I'm going to create a pod that has one container. The container has set a memory request of 100 MB and a memory limit of 200 MB. During the execution, the container attempts to allocate 150 MB of memory. So, pretty legal. Are you ready to have fun? Let's go! Wait a minute, would you like to know more about how to assign memory resources to container and pods? The best resources is the official Kubernetes documentation. There are a lot of examples also how the OOM killer interact with container and why it is important for you as a cluster manager to set up some limit for the container, otherwise you ended up eating all the resources of your system. So defining some requests and limits is very useful for you as a cluster administrator. And now back to code. Welcome to my editor. I'm going to show you one Ansible playbook to assign memory resources to Kubernetes and OpenShift. First of all, let's begin our play with a name K8s memory demo that is going to be executed against localhost. Yes, the current Ansible host. Why not? Let me disable the system information gathering, gather facts false, and the connection must be local, of course. Let me define also one variable. This is a local variable. My project is the name of the Kubernetes namespace or OCP project, mem-example. And now let's the fun begin. First of all, let's create the namespace, create my project namespace. In this way, we are going to see the display name in our output. Kubernetes.core.K8s module. The kind must be a namespace and the name is the value of my variable. So my project, here we go. And done. State must be present And let me define also API underscore version v1, but this is optional. It's always v1 as a default. Now we have an empty namespace. We should create a pod and container. So kubernetes.core.k8s again, and let's create a pod. State must be present, and this time let's define one definition inline. This is a YAML document, the same that you are used to use in Kubernetes. So API version v1. The kind must be pod, metadata. The name must, let's provide a name for this pod, memory-demo. And let's define also namespace. In this case will be the value of my project variable. You see, it's very helpful to have a variable, so you could change in only one place. Now the spec with more details about the containers. Let's define the name, in my case memory-demo-control. Let's define the image. I'm using a stress test image, so po/linux/stress. And let's define the resources limit. In this case, first of all, the request of memory. Let's start with memory 100 megabyte. Yeah, this is the whole discussion about the units. So 100 megabyte and 200 megabyte as a limit. So the container will start with 100 and is allowed to request as maximum 200. Let's define some command line options. So the command to run is stress, and let's define the argument. First of all, --VM, in my case only one. And what else? We need to define our parameter --VM bytes. This is the number of the amount of memory request, 150. And what else do we need? Of course, we have also VM-hangout. No, VM-hang. These are parameters of the container. Here we go. In a few lines of Ansible code, we are able to run a pod in my Kubernetes cluster and define some memory request and limit. This is very helpful, as you could understand, because it creates some boundary between the container that must be expected. And as you can see, few lines of code are very powerful. Now, let me show you the execution demo on my OpenShift cluster. First of all, let me connect in the web UI with kubeadmin user and try to go to project and list anything that starts with MEM, and there are no project found. So let's move on to the terminal to start the fun. Welcome to the terminal. First of all, let me introduce my code-ready OpenShift container. Is a self-contained, basically is a virtual machine that you can run in your system. So let me load the OpenShift utility so I'm able to log in with user kubeadmin on my cluster. Here is the API settings. So I have a 66 project. First of all, let me list mem-example. We are expecting no project with this name, and it's confirmed. A project name mem-example doesn't exist. So let me grab mem-example and same result. Here I have a full list, but there is no project with this name. So what happens if I'm trying to get the POD memory mem-demo of the namespace mem-example? Well, OpenShift will say error from server, namespace mem-example not found. So let's execute my Ansible playbook and see if this situation changes. The execution is super smooth, super fast. It returns change status, which means some operations were performed on my Kubernetes OpenShift cluster. What happens if we execute again the same code? Well, OK status. This property is called idempotency. It only verifies that everything is in the state that we wanted. And it is. Let's verify together. So first of all, OC project mem-example. This is a way to open the namespace mem-example, and this time it exists. Let's list the pod, and there is one pod running. Oh, let's deep dive with output YAML. Let's verify the limits and requests. A long list of parameters, as you can see. It looks like the definition that we specified in the Ansible playbook, and here we are, the container with the parameter that we were expecting, as well as the resource limit and request of memory. Yay! Good job, Ansible! You set it up this virtual machine for us. Great! I'm so happy about this. What happened in the web UI? Well, let's switch to the project. This time mem-example exists, and as you can see, there is one pod running. Yes, it is running. Yay! 5 minutes ago was created, and here you have all the full parameter and details. This is a great thing. On the metrics I don't see any data yet, but on the YAML file we have the same exact information that we saw on the command line, especially the container resource that we specified manually. And the other things, or maybe the logs, could be useful. You can see the raw things here that are some parameter of the stress utility running. So yes, the stress utility is running so good inside this container. And that's it. Oh, here is working, but this is the most important part. On the YAML file we have all the detail of the command as well as the memory limit. Yay, good job, Ansible. What happens if we specify a number of memory measure than the limit that we set? Well, let's find out together. So let's specify 500 megabyte for the stress request, and let's see what happened. So let me execute again the same project with 500 megabyte. Back on my terminal, let me execute my Ansible playbook with Kubernetes assign memory. The execution is super smooth as before, but what happens if we move to OC project mem example? Okay, we are able to enter in the project and OC pod memory. No, OC pod. Oh, sorry, OC get pod. My bad. I was thinking and typing, not a great idea. Ooh, we have something here. The status is not running, is crash loop back off. And what happened if we execute again? We finally got OOM killer. This is a utility that kills the container if the request of memory is superior to the request. So if you got this status message, you need to double check the request and limit of your container. Now you know how to assign memory resources to Kubernetes K8s or OpenShift OCP container and pod with Ansible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I know that you will enjoy the next IT adventure of Ansible Pilot. And have a great day! See ya! This video is part of our Ansible automation program. Sign up today on www.ansiblepilot.com for uninterrupted exclusive video and so much fun!